Today on the podcast, we're talking about going out on tour. Are you planning your first tour? It can get pretty crazy out there. We're talking about a few things you might want to keep in mind. See you on the inside. What is up, guys? How's it going? This is Mike at the Songwriters Podcast. You are visiting me today. Thank you very much for swinging by. I am the creator of the Songwriters Planner. And if you're here on the podcast, you got here through my website. I have the planner right here in my hand. It is a 6-month planner for artists, musicians, creative people, my favorite people, helping you promote productivity, inspiration, creativity, all that good stuff. And if you're listening on podcast, please check it out. Go swing by my website, www.songwritersplanner.com, to check it out. There's nothing like it on the market. And that is the end of the sales pitch for today. All right, cool. Let me put that down. All right. Again, thank you guys for swinging by the podcast. I really appreciate it. I enjoy doing these. I have a lot of fun doing them. It allows me to share things with you that I think is really important for artists and musicians in today's music market. It is completely different than what it was even 10 years ago. And there are a lot of things that we need to look at as artists and musicians to kind of keep in mind. I mean, you know, we're in charge of doing everything ourselves now. You can literally do every aspect of your music career yourself, from booking tours, which is what we're going to talk about today, to creating videos, to recording yourself, to creating flyers, to promoting, to advertising. It all falls on your shoulders these days. And that's why we're here. That's why the planner is around. That's why this podcast exists. And that's why I am here today. Okay, so that was a mouthful of stuff. So today we're going to go ahead and jump into our topic today. Today we're talking about touring. Yes, that mishmash of hitting cities or even just touring around your own city or going on a national tour or going on a 2-week regional tour. Doesn't matter. Touring. If you've never toured before, and I'll say this in a disclaimer. Touring, let's say, you go out for a week long worth of shows and you just go out and play a show every night in a different city, something along that line, which I could probably consider a tour. You can stack up 2 to 3 dates or whatever. But if you've never done that before, it can sound really exciting. And let me tell you, it is exciting, and it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work. And there's a lot of things that you want to make sure you keep in mind when you're going on tour, okay? Let's say you got your first tour booked. You're going to be out for a week. You're going to be out for maybe even 4 days. Doesn't matter. Today, we're talking about a couple tips, 5 tips roughly, that you want to keep in mind when you go out there. Because, like I said, it can be a lot of fun, but there can be a lot of things that, if you don't know ahead of time, can trip you up and can kind of ruin your tour, seriously. Or you can leave with everybody having just a terrible time. And you don't want that. If you're going out on tour, you want to be successful. You want to make new fans, which is the most important thing. I would say sell albums and sell music, but that doesn't really happen too much these days at shows. What you really want to do is find new fans. That's what touring is all about, okay? So that they check you out and become a fan of yours. You want all these positive things to happen. You want to make money, obviously, from your shows. You want all these things to happen. So we're here to talk about a few things that you can keep in mind when you go out on tour, so that you don't get caught up in coming back with a bad experience, okay? Because it can happen pretty easily. So, okay, I'll just give you a little bit of background on me. I'm a drummer, and I've gone on tour many times. My touring days have kind of slowed down at this point. But everything that I'm talking about today is experience that I've had and experience that I've heard from other people that I know that have gone on tour. And it pretty much applies to any actual show that you're playing. Forget touring. If you're just playing a show, which all of us do, these things that we're talking about today really do apply to all these situations. But specifically to going out on tour, because like I said, it can be fun, but you can trip up on a lot of things. So, okay, enough talk. Let's jump right into it. So, the first thing you want to do when you go out on a tour is be prepared to pack. Okay, packing is the way you pack and how you pack and what you pack in are super important. You want to make sure that you bring extras of everything, okay? Bring extra guitar strings, bring extra guitars, bring extra basses, bring extra drum heads, you name it. I mean, everything you can think of, bring as much as you can, especially if you're going out for a long time, like say a month. That's a long tour. Bring as much extra stuff as possible. Overthink it, because the last thing you want is to be out on the road, or worse yet, playing a show and some of your gear goes down. Let's say your guitar amp goes down and there's no backup, right? Now what do you're scrambling to like find a backup guitar amp. You got to ask the bands that you're playing with. You never know. I mean, you just want to overthink and make sure you try to bring as much of extra as everything as you can. It's super important to remember that, because anything can go wrong on tour. I'm telling you, man. There's been times when you just don't expect the bass amp to go out, or you just don't expect the kick drum head to break, and now you're like, oh my God, there was a kick drum. You just want to make sure that you bring as much extra gear as possible. That also goes with your merchandising. If you're bringing shirts, if you're bringing, hats, if you got CDs or whatever you're selling, make sure you bring enough to last you the amount of time that you're going to be out there. If you can. I know there's a lot. It's going to take up more room in whatever vehicle you're traveling in. If you're traveling in an SUV, if you're traveling in a van, if you're pulling a trailer, make sure that you bring enough stuff, especially your merch, to last your tour, because the merch is how you are really going to make money when you're out on the road. If you're bringing, if you're selling shirts and everything like that, you're going to need things like money for gas. You're going to need things like money for food. You're going to need things like money for hotels if you're lucky enough to stay in a hotel. Whatever the case, just pack, overpack, overthink when it comes to stocking yourself up, especially if this is your first tour and you haven't done it before. So packing, making sure everything is ready to go. I would also suggest making sure that you can try to pack all of your gear in hard cases. Because as you're out on the road, that stuff gets banged around a lot, and you just never know what's going to happen to your gear, especially if you're pulling it in a trailer, when you're loading in and out of clubs every other night or every night. If you can put your equipment in hard cases, it is worth the investment, because you never know what kind of road bumps, what kind of stuff your gear is going to encounter when you're out there. Excuse me, I got indigestion tonight. Woo. But yeah, hard cases, and that stuff I know can get expensive. I know depending on, if you're going to get a hard case for your guitar cabinet or hard cases for drums, I know that stuff is expensive. So I wouldn't say go out and invest in that unless you for sure a touring act and you're touring all the time. But think about ways that you can encase your instrument and your equipment in something that will protect it the best that you can afford, the best that you can. You will thank yourself, because you don't want your gear to get all busted up while you're out there on the road. It really has a lot of wear and tear, okay? Also, too, let's talk about packing, clothes. What are you going to bring, right? I would suggest that you pack as light as possible, because you're already carrying all this gear. You're already packing all this equipment into whatever you're driving or whatever you're rolling in. You want to pack as light as possible. Don't bring wardrobe changes after wardrobe change unless you can afford the space. I know that some acts out there get pretty crazy with the wardrobes. That's cool. If you have the space to do it, cool. But if not, then pack as light as possible. I used to, when I went on tour, I used to buy, because I'm a drummer and I used to sweat a lot, I used to buy the Hanes white shirts, like 2 packs of them. And that's like 6 shirts each. It's 12 shirts. If we were going out for 2 weeks, I would literally just wear the shirt, and then it would get all so sweaty and whatnot, and I would just throw it away. Because they were just so cheap shirts. And I would just pack as light as possible and just bring the most simple stuff as possible, so that makes your life easier. You don't know when you're going to, get to the next laundromat or anything like that. So make sure that you bring the things that matter to you the most. And then when you get a chance to do that laundry, seriously. All right, guys, that is the first thing we're talking about, is packing, gear, merchandising, your clothes, all that stuff. Just make sure you overthink it, because you don't want to get stuck out there and not have these things, not be prepared for it, put it that way, okay? All right, let's talk about something that we probably, as musicians and artists, don't think about too often while we're out on the road, because we're having fun, but try to embrace healthy habits, okay? Now, what I mean by that is when you have the opportunity to, say, eat healthy, do it. If you have the opportunity to get some sleep, do it. I know it's really, really tempting to just go 100 miles an hour when you're out there on tour because it's so much fun. I mean, being in different cities, meeting new people, it's really cool. But the thing is, especially if you're out on a long tour, say a month or longer, if you're not taking care of yourself, your body is going to run down. You're going to get sick. If you're a singer, you could start losing your voice, and you don't want that to happen. If you're touring in the middle of winter and you get cold and the constant going back and forth between inside a club and then going back and forth to your van or whatever bus, out, in, out, all that stuff right there, that affects your body. And if you're staying up late and you're partying hard and you're drinking every night, and your body's eventually going to run down. So whenever you get the chance, embrace some kind of healthy habit, whether it's sleeping, whether it's eating right, whether it's even if it's just hydrating, drinking water. It's really easy to forget about that stuff because you can get caught up in touring because it's so much fun. But like I said, it's a lot of work, and you can easily forget about what's important. And taking care of your bodies should be a high on your priority list. I've been guilty that I put this on the list because I haven't done it before, and I've been sick on the road. And the last thing you want is to be sick and you feel like throwing up, but you have to play a show because you're out on tour and that's why you're there. Man, it is not a good feeling when that happens. So just take care of yourselves, embrace healthy habits when you're out on the road. Okay. That's the next tip. Another tip, which is super important, I just wanted to throw it in there, is make sure you can at least sign up for some kind of road assistance plan. We're talking like AAA or something like that. Super, super helpful. It will help you if you guys ever get stranded anywhere in the middle of the country. Make sure that you have some kind of roadside assistance. Make sure you have some kind of information as to every time you're driving through a state, through a city, you know where help is or can be, or the closest help. I'm telling you, you don't want to miss shows. So if you blow a tire out or you don't have a spare or something like that, make sure that you have something, at least some kind of backup plan, someone you can call to help you guys out if you get stuck. You just don't want to get stuck in a city and you just can't make shows. And next thing you know, you're losing shows and you're losing money. And it's a really bad place to be in, and can really kill momentum and vibe of a tour if you just don't have any roadside assistance help or anything like that. So look into it, and definitely worth paying for that kind of a service, okay? All right, so let's talk about when you actually get to your gig, when you get to the venue and you're excited, you're setting up. I really want to stress how important it is, because you're in a new town, you're in a new place, you don't know anybody. It's really important for you to be friendly. Now, I know you might be laughing, but it's really important for you to just be cool, be nice to everybody, be nice to the club owners, be nice to the sound guy, the people who are helping you load in, anybody who's there to work your show. Make sure you're cool with them, man, because you don't know them at all and they don't know you. So the last thing you want to do is leave a bad impression, or the last thing you want to do is like start off on the wrong foot with these people. I know sometimes club owners and managers, they can be pretty grumpy, man, because they put up with bands all day, every night. They can be pretty grumpy. They can be kind of standoffish. That you can't control any of that. But what you can control is how you behave when you arrive to a new venue in a new city and you don't know anybody. Like I said, you don't want to leave a bad impression first thing, because it'll ruin your night. The sound guy, get on the good side of the sound guy, because whoever is running sound that night, if you don't have your own sound guy and they don't like you already, you're going to have bad sound, and you don't want that, right? So just be cool with everybody, be patient, and be nice to all the people that are there to help you. If they brought someone in to help you sell your merch, oh my God, that's a godsend. Because if you have someone out there helping you now, you don't have to worry about not being able to sell merch while you're on stage. Just anybody who comes across your path at the show, be cool with them and just be patient with them, because you don't know them, they don't know you, and you want to make sure that you are at least cool and you get off on the good side. Okay. On the flip side of that, make sure that you are super extra nice to anybody who comes to your show that you don't know, any fans, that people that you don't know. And after the show, make sure you talk to them, because this is an out of town gig. You don't know when you're coming back. You don't know when you're going to be able to talk to these people. So the best opportunity that you have to meet new people that are potential fans or that became fans, the better for you. Nothing is going to, take away from that one-on-one conversation that you can have with new people in a new town, making new fans. I'll tell you, man, there's nothing better than that, than playing in front of a new crowd and all of a sudden these people dig you, and then you get to talk to them after the show. Be extra nice to them, because they are there to check you out, and you just became, you just got new fans, man. There's nothing better than that. It's a great feeling. Don't play the whole rock star, I'm not going to talk to you guys, I'm not going to sign autographs. No, do the exact opposite. Be, like, I'm in, let's talk. Wow, this is a great city, it's a great club. Thank you for coming out. I'm really glad you liked it. Let me buy you a beer. You don't have to do that. But I'm just saying, be very nice to anybody that you meet who dug your performance and who digs your music, because you just don't know when you're going to be back. And you may see them online on social media sharing your content now because you were very nice. How many times have we heard stories from friends of ours, or that maybe experiences you've had, where you're like, oh yeah, I met this person from this band, and they were really cocky, and they were just a dick. How many times have you heard that? God, I hear that all the time. Like, this is your reputation that you're putting out there, especially in a city that you've never been. I just hear stories like that all the time, and I'm sure you have. Just be on alert, be upfront with people, and just be nice and be cool as best you can. Even if you've had a long day or you got a long drive, just be cool, everybody. It will help you out in the long run. I guarantee it. Okay. So that was another tip. And the last thing I wanted to talk about when you go on the road, and especially if this is your first tour, just be flexible. It's super important to be patient and just be flexible with everybody, because going on tour, you have a schedule, you have cities you need to be in, you got load-in times, you got all this stuff, but things don't always go as planned, okay? You could have car problems, you could have equipment problems, you could have miscommunication problems. You were supposed to play this gig and now that gig got canceled, so now you're not there. Anything can happen, especially if, say, you're going on tour and you're opening for another band, and that it's that band's tour and you're just an opening act. There's things that can happen between that right there. You never know. Just over communicate with people, be flexible, and be patient. If you're riding in a van, if you're touring in a van, like most touring acts start off in a van, you have to be patient with your band members. You guys got to be patient with each other, because you're now living with them. You're now living with everybody, and everybody has different habits, man. It's like living with 4 different brothers or sisters. Everybody's got habits. Everybody's got things that tick them off. Everybody's got things that they like to be left alone, or they like to be social. So if this is your first tour, just remember that you have to be patient and flexible about these things, because you want everybody to get along. You want to get along with your bandmates. You want to get along with the people at the clubs. These are all people that have to get jobs done. Another thing about being flexible and patient is if you are rolling together in your transportation, there's only one car. Usually there's one car. And if one person wants to go this way, another person wants to go to McDonald's, and another person wants to go see their aunt in this town, you only literally have one car to do all these things. So you're not always going to get your way. You're going to be on what I call band time. You may want to get to lunch at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, but so-and-so woke up at 1, so now we're not going to get to lunch till 2. That kind of stuff is super, super important to understand, that it happens, and that you just have to be patient with it, because you want to make it through the tour. You want to make sure everybody has a good time. And it can be very stressful if these things aren't at least mentioned and taken a look at before you go on, or at least you have them in your mind, like that's what's going to be happening. I tell you, man, touring is a great time. It can be a great experience. The show, when you get on stage and you play the shows, that's the payoff. That's where all the hard work comes into play. People see you at your show. They see the top of the iceberg. They see the part that everybody enjoys. But under that water is all the work that's gone on to get there, from driving to the club all night to, scraping for gas to putting up with everybody. That's the stuff that people don't see. And that's the important stuff. That is the stuff that you need to make sure you have on lock, so that when you get to the tip of that iceberg that night and people see you, that you got nothing but 100% to give to them if they come to see you. That is what touring is all about, is keeping all that stuff, the bottom of the iceberg, solid, so that you can perform when you're ready to get on stage. Okay, and that's what touring is all about. Aside from making money and gaining new fans, obviously, the operation of touring is making sure that you're flexible, you're friendly, your gear's ready, you're healthy, you're not sick, all that stuff. Okay, so that is today's podcast, people. Thanks for joining me. I had a good time sharing my stories and sharing some thoughts with you on touring. If you have any more suggestions, please hit me up on my Facebook page, message me, and I'll do another podcast and we'll talk about touring. We'll talk about your experiences. I'd love to hear that kind of stuff. Okay, guys? So till next time, hope you guys dug it. I'll see you at the next podcast. Peace and love.